Hi, all.
Good morning.
Hey, do you want to understand another person? Do you want to build relationship with them? Well, here's a simple rule of thumb. You have to understand how and why a person learns and becomes who they are. Now, if we had our political leaders and community leaders and country just follows this simple rule, there'd be fewer wars. People would engage in the political process in a number of greater ways, in greater numbers, and the health of this nation would improve. Hi, all. I'm Frank Spillers.
And I'm Kim Spillers.
And we're from Rural Community Solutions. And this is
Cece. Cece always joins us at the beginning of the show. This is our Wooka raccoon, our mascot who helps us welcome, understand, comfort, and appreciate each other and ourselves. So Cece says hello and is going to go join us from the table.
Join us from the table.
That's it.
Yep,
Cece's watching us.
Cece's watching us.
She has her eyes on us.
That's it. Well, we want to welcome you today. It's a continuation of our week. And the theme of the week is engagement. We just hope that you're enjoying this. If not, let us know that maybe something doesn't connect for you or it's just not there for you. So engagement is all about how we relate to other people, how do we communicate, but it's all about active listening to somebody else to find out why they think what they think, how they think, and how you can find your common ground to get to that thinking process.
In addition to thinking, it helps when we understand someone's thinking, then we understand their actions, what causes them to behave a certain way. So it's really important on a number of different levels to ask some questions and to just pay attention to what people have to say, because then you understand them better and what's happening in their lives.
So I hope you were listening, and my voice was carrying into the microphone because it was on the table as I was talking until I just found it and put it on. You know, this is live. We do things a little bit differently in live. So we can't go cut and split, slice, and put it all back together. So,
but here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, I'm hoping that maybe between the two microphones, you did hear me kind of muffled, but I was still there. So we want to talk today, and yesterday we mentioned this, but I want to just reiterate it because it's important of how you understand and what communities need to do to tackle what we call wicked issues. Wicked issues are all interconnected issues. They're separate issues, but they are interconnected in a value-based way that people understand and build that community. There's also that wicked issues are where people hold different and deeply held values about the issue. They will feel deeply about it because of their value system. And they feel that if they give up and change something or change their mind on this one issue, it's going to compromise their value system. Also, wicked issues are issues where emotions run high. And so you take those three things. They're interconnected with each other. They're issues where people hold different and deeply held values about that issue, and their emotions are going to run high. In other words, you could get into some heated conversations. So, let me think about some issues that we might be going through right now. Let's see. Oh, yeah, school's starting up and people wearing masks. Those are interconnected issues. People hold different opinions on them and deeply held values about them. And there are some emotions that are running high with some people. Right, so that's a example of some wicked issues, and there's many other wicked issues out there which we'll explain a little bit later on as we go through today's broadcast of how to get through some of those wicked issues. So your community doesn't get stuck, because many of these issues that are wicked issues are issues that you have swept under the rug for years, maybe even centuries in your community that you know that are there, but you don't want to talk about them because it's kind of like, if we talk about them, we acknowledge they're real. And if we don't acknowledge they're real, then maybe they don't exist. But let me tell you, they do exist, and they affect how your community responds to different things. It affects how your community is growing. It affects how your community is not growing. And more importantly, it probably is affecting your community for not growing because you're not dealing with those issues. And it's just like somebody with PTSD, as they want to address that trauma, they can't move forward in their lives until that trauma is addressed and moved forward. And we have dealt with people like that. We have dealt with traumas in our business, and we know that it is a barrier for people and communities moving forward on the trauma.
So what we encourage you to do is to think about this, and what we have found working in rural communities specifically is that people who were born and raised there, whose maybe grandparents or great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents were founding members, there are issues. And Frank talked about us. He told a story the other day about a community that was stuck for more than a century. The older generations who used to live there understood what the problem was. And as the generations continue, you may not know what an issue is, but there's something that goes along with it. And this is just the way you behave, or this is just the way you talk, or this is who you don't talk to, or you do make sure you talk to. There are things that happen in communities. And when new people move in, if you're lucky enough to have new people move in who don't have that history, don't understand some of those issues, it gets really complicated and confusing. And they offer a suggestion and they're met with, no, we can't do that. And they don't understand why. So that's why it's really important in communities that we talk about what's going on. We think about new stuff. We think about new approaches and new ways to go about life in our community and to grow better together. Because the history, as we say, the environment is more important than the heredity. And so we want to create a good, healthy, wonderful environment where people can get things done and move ahead and grow together.
96% of things you do on a daily basis are in your subconscious mind. So when we have swept things under the rug for centuries or years in your community, those issues are still at top of mind, and those issues have been passed down generation to generation, and that then affects the way that we act. And we'll get into that a little bit later of why that happens and what happens in a child's brain to create who they are and get their personality. It's really interesting, but we'll deal with that in another day. Yeah, another day. When we have about 3 or 4 hours to really delve into it.
Yep.
But yeah, that'll be a
really
whole
cool
week.
Stuff,
that'll be a whole week here.
Yep.
But as these issues are passed down, they become disruptive, and disruptive issues are created in such a way, that the more disruptive the issue, people's choices have been taken away. Now, yesterday when we went through the sense
of well-being triangle.
Sense of well-being triangle. It's formed by 3 different elements: choices, safety, and your quality of life. So as your choices are taken away, people's choices taken away. In other words, one of the causes of conflict is authoritative and submissive relationship here. I'm going to tell you what to do. Here's my edict. You have to do that. This is what we're going to do. You have to follow me. Well, the more your choices as an individual and as a community member are taken away, the more disruptive the issue is. So the higher level of choices, the less disruptive that issue is. And that's why conversations and what we describe as deliberative dialogues are very important for a community to do and to understand and to ingrain in their economic development activities and their community development activities and growth activities. That if you do that and you ingrain that, you get more of a community engagement and you get less disruptive issues because people are a part of the solution. They're not a part of the problem. And so when you have disruptive issues, the longer those disruptive issues are, the higher the cost they are to resolve those. All right. Now, I told the story about a community that had a 100-year-old issue to where they grew hate within that community, and that became one of those issues they didn't want to respond to. So they just swept it under the rug, but it took them 100 years to figure out why they weren't growing. And once they figured that out, they could start to heal. Now, whether they started growing or not determined what they did with the information that they had. But the more disruptive the issue, the longer it takes to resolve and the higher the cost. The cost is, money. It costs a lot of money to resolve an issue, but it also is costing in volunteers. It is costing in people that might be new leaders. It is costing people might volunteer for your organization that they just don't feel a part of, or they don't feel welcome within your community or within what they're trying to deal with.
Well, and with that is that as issues and behaviors get planted in our subconscious, so again, back to brain development that we'll tackle another time, but when we have things that are embedded in our subconscious through our families, often, that's where the string comes from. If you think of the Hatfields and McCoys, for example, long-term, long-standing behaviors and attitudes make a difference in our community. And now we're so mobile that we can fairly easily move to a different community. If we don't feel like we have a place here, we'll just go and figure out where we might have a place and be able to plant our lives and grow ourselves somewhere else. So it really does matter to population and vitality and opportunity and business development, how we have our attitudes and what people perceive.
Because remember, people are choosing where they want to live. Mm-hmm. They're not choosing a job and then moving to where the job are. Some of them are, but people are choosing more to the place they want to live. And then they move there and then they start to look for a job. And so on these issues that you're going on, there's going to be, there's going to be a right way and a wrong way. Okay. It all depends upon your perception. Your way, I'm sure, is the right way. The perception is that whoever disagrees with you, well, that's the wrong way, okay? However, there is one way, another way, and then there could be a third way. It is finding that common ground of a third way that people want to get at, that you want to get at. A third way to where people are looking at, what's the camel dilemma? How do we figure out that third way? The camel dilemma is a story of a traveler in a caravan coming across the desert and comes upon three men. These three men were sitting around an oasis and they were just beside themselves. Some of them were crying, others were wondering what to do. Their heads were in their hands. They just didn't know what to do. And the traveler walked up to him and said, "What's wrong? How can I help?" And the oldest of the three turned to him and said, "Our father died, and he gave us his inheritance, and he gave us strict orders of how to split the inheritance." The traveler said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Well, I'm the oldest, so I get half. My second brother, he gets a third. And my third brother, he gets a ninth. And we could split all of the inheritance easily, and we did that. But my father left us a herd of 17 camels, and we can't figure out how to do that." So he goes, okay, so the oldest gets half. The second gets a third. And the youngest gets 1/9. And you have 17 camels. How is that possible? And that is what the brothers were in a quandary about. They just couldn't figure out how they were going to do it. And so the traveler thought for a moment, talked more and further with the three sons, and then offered to loan them a camel. And the brother said, no, I can't, we can't take that camel. We just can't do that. And the traveler said, no, please let me do this for you. Let me loan you the camel. And then you can split the inheritance. And when it's available and you have the resources, you can pay me back my camel. So the three brothers and the oldest brother, who is now in he was now in control of the family, said, okay, this is what we'll do. Okay, so we have 18 camels. Well, the oldest said, okay, as we split then with the camels, the oldest said, okay, I get 9. So he split in half. What's half of 18 is 9. The second said, okay, I get a third. So that's 6. And the youngest said, okay, I get 1/9. And so that is 2. So there we have 9 to the oldest, 6 to the middle one. So that's 9 plus 6 is 15. And the youngest gets 1/9, which is 2. So we have 9, 6, 15, and 2 is 17. And they had 1 camel left over, so they could then say to the traveler, here's your camel. Paid back the camel to the traveler. The traveler in the caravan went on its way. Now, what part of the story did you not understand? Because when I started the story and I said, a traveler in a caravan came upon 3 men. The assumption is that the caravan had camels with it, and he was traveling across the desert on camels. And so that is part of the story, part of the information that we have to start thinking about as we gather more information. So there is one way, no way, and the third way. And that is what deliberative dialogue is let's find that third way. Let's find how we can get along. Let's find out that the common ground to where we agree upon and we can move forward.
It's a great story. You can't divide 17 that way, but isn't it interesting that when we think of a new way to look at an issue or solve a problem and play the, well, what if we did it this way game? What if we did try this idea? Then we can come up with new solutions.
Or what would happen if? I mean, those are real good questions that you ask yourself and you ask the group as you sit around. So in deliberative dialogue, there is structure that you want to do. There's ground rules. There are no barriers. There are no tables involved. There are circles, and people sit in a circle in chairs. And then you have a moderator, you have a convener. We go all through this in our small community engagement institute that we have trained communities across this country of how to have deliberative dialogues in your community to engage people around issues that are wicked. And some of those stories are pretty interesting when we do this, specifically when we do small community engagement institutes in school systems. Now, our small community engagement institute is we teach the art of deliberative dialogue, and we talk through the issues and not just about the issues. So we take those wicked issues that come up in some conversations and interviews that we do as we start to frame those issues and look at what the issues have been that have been swept under the rug. And then we start to train individuals, and we visit with the community and have deliberative dialogues in those communities around those wicked issues. And when we go into the schools and we have these deliberative dialogues with students, they reflect what they hear at home. And when we are having a moderated discussion with those students in a circle, sometimes those students don't have a filter. And when you don't have a filter, you tell it pretty much like it is. So it's a good reflection on how people think about the community, what people are saying about the community, because kids hear that. And so that's why we say, how will this decision affect children? And what type of environment are you setting in your community that kids want to stay, that they want the experiences, that they don't want to just pick up and I can't wait to get the heck out of this town. You want to give your youth the experiences to where they want to become involved in the community and go on. And so when we've had these conversations, a lot of information has come out. Now, when you have community conversations in deliberative dialogue process, what you get is really a good picture of what the perception of your community is. And we get the perception of the community, of the perception of the people. What do people think about the people? We get the perception of of the economy. What do people think about the economy? And we get the perception of what people think about the community. And in these deliberative dialogues, the issues will rise up and perceptions of those three items of people, community, and economy will become at the forefront. And then you will get a clear picture of your circumstances of where you're at directly within your community. It's interesting. And what you do with that information is up to you. Now, we've been in a couple of communities, right? This is one thing.
We've been in several, but there two stories stand out.
And what you want to do is you want to remember part of community dialogue, part of understanding is active listening. Active listening is listening for the values, listening for what is really being said. And as we have done this with communities with students, we have given the report of our community dialogue of what the students say, not who said it, but what they say. And we've given it to the community in a report that says, here's some of the issues that they're talking about. Here's their perception. And two of the communities have thrown the report away and have discounted what the youth have said and said, oh, our youth would never say that. You made it up and you're putting words in their mouths. Now, that's up to the community to have a perception of what might be said and a perception of, what the youth might say. What the youth tells us is what's been swept under the rug for generations, and that starts to come out. One of the communities that we've had conversations with, we have found out that they had a huge opioid problem within that community. And the community knew it. They just didn't know how to address it. And so they just kept sweeping it under the rug. But as we talked to some of the youth wouldn't even live within that town because of some of their addictions problems. They are in recovery programs, so they couldn't live in the town anymore because of old memories. And the community treated them as if they were still addicted. One of the youth also told us that they had lost their parent due to an overdose. We found out that in one weekend, they had up to 10 people overdose within their community.
And actually die.
And what we were finding out during our interviews through community leaders is they didn't have a drug problem. They're in the school system. The school system said it's the adults, and the adults said it's the kids, but they wouldn't acknowledge it. They wouldn't talk about it. They just point fingers at, it might be there. And so then the employers had a workforce problem. They couldn't hire people because people had a drug problem. They couldn't pass a drug test. So those are these issues that are swept under the rug that have emerged that they need to address before they can move forward. You can't discount those issues. Just because you say they're not there doesn't mean they're not there. You have to address those. And so other places we have, if a community is not growing, we ask one question: do people really feel welcome within that community? And when we have addressed that, we've actually been dismissed from a community because they didn't want to address that issue because of some underlying concern that happened in the history of some people, that they didn't want to address that concern that might have ripped the Band-Aid off of that just covered up something. And then it would have brought up old wounds. It would have brought up all those issues that they didn't want to deal with. So as we talked to some people that had just moved there or were still living within that community for maybe 15, 20 years, they still didn't feel a part of that community. The community leaders did not want to address that issue of how do we help people, and how do we help people create, and how do we create an environment that helps people feel like they belong?
That is a really important issue. Referring back to the founding members of a community, sometimes, often actually, those family members, generations have continued to stay in that place because they have a business that they're continuing to promote or to maintain or to grow. But the community members recognize that without that one or two or three families' seal of approval or thumbs up, that they're gatekeepers. And when the gatekeepers don't agree with a direction, then you can have just walls put up, and that stops community progress. When we're founding families, we need to be looking at new ways of doing things as well, and stepping aside, stepping back, opening our minds to what could be. And so those are some things that we find in rural communities as well.
So you just can't sweep those issues under the rug. You have to deal with them. And this is using a deliberative dialogue approach. It opens up those issues in a conversation that is respectful and builds civility. And so here's the challenge to school systems now that they're starting to open up. Have you engaged the community in talking about the safety and their perception of schools opening up? And have you engaged the business community in what would happen if the students get the virus and a family has to be quarantined? Or take an example of a sports team, and the sports team then can't practice, and the sports team has to be quarantined for a while. Now, when that athlete comes home, it's not just the athlete that has to quarantine, it's the whole family. So have you had the conversation with your business community on what's going to happen to the parent that can't come into work because they have to be quarantined? Is that parent going to be paid? Is that parent going to lose its job? Is that parent going to have the economic ability to pay its bills during the 2-week period that they have to be quarantined? These are conversations that people have to have in order to be engaged. Otherwise, it becomes a very disruptive issue and very divisive. And this is where division happens within a community. This is where division happens within a country. If you don't talk about positions and interests, and if you need the review on that, go to yesterday's live stream.
Episode.
Yeah, on there.
Yes.
Yeah. On there. And positions and interests. It's people make a position, but it's really the interests that you're interested in, because that's what they're going to do. That's why they do what they do. And so that all wraps up into how do we talk through those issues? So tomorrow, come back, because tomorrow we're going to have a guest.
Yes. So we will have Bruce Foistel, who is a friend and colleague of ours for many years. Bruce is a retired senior management official with the National Conference of State Legislatures. He has global experience that is just inspiring. He knows things from around the world and how engagement works between legislators and between citizens, what benefits we can enjoy when we talk to each other. And so you're going to love hearing from Bruce. It's just very exciting. Just to, I guess, recap what we've talked about today is that we've offered you some stories, some approaches, and suggested that if you have an issue or issues in your community that you need some help doing, we have a Train the Trainer Institute called the Small Community Engagement Institute that can help you.
It's training your community of how to handle these issues and how to talk through those issues, but also how to create the space to where citizens can engage in a safe manner, build civility, but help move your community forward. It's all about building civility within the community. That's the foundation of building relationships. So it's relationships and engagement that build community wealth. Without relationships, nothing happens, but you have to maintain those relationships in order to have that strong foundation. So come back tomorrow and get some real life experience from somebody that has done it outside, all over the world, through the political process. And we hope that you join us. Remember, if you like this episode, please share it with other people. We want this to go out far and wide. It's just we like the likes and we like that, the little hearts. And if you like it, if you love it, that's great to show us. But really, we need to spread this information. We need to get this information to other communities, to get it to other organizations. So please share this episode. Share how you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd love to hear from you. That's Frank@ghorizons.com
and Kim@ghorizons.com. And we have lots and lots of topics to discuss. But if you have ideas that you'd really appreciate some help on, shoot us an email and let's see what we can do together to help your issue move ahead.
Or if you have some people that have actually done things like this, let us know, because we'd love to get them on the air and to talk to them. We have set aside Thursdays really for interviews, but sometimes you just want to listen to somebody else besides us. So, we'll put them in wherever they can, wherever they fit. So we hope that you have had an educational experience. You're a little bit more versed on deliberative dialogue. It's all about deliberation, and deliberative dialogue is intentional talk of how you intentionally talk through an issue, not just about issue. And intentional is the optimum word. So we're glad that you joined us. We hope that you have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow for another episode of Rural Community Solutions TV live stream. And we'll see you here tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Central Daylight Time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
And have a great day.